I'm excited you're here. Thanks for being here. This is going to be awesome. We used to do lots of events. We used to fill up huge churches and halls and rent places at what's the word I'm looking for? Hotels, conference rooms at hotels. And then crap hit the fan in 2020, and nobody wanted to come to an event, or very few people wanted to come to an event. And then we struggled to kind of get back to this. So this is exciting. It's exciting to have a bunch of people in the room wanting to learn. Here's one of the big things I want you guys knowing is that as a chiropractor and taking care of lots of patients, the same way that you guys don't want to go see a doctor who's not continuing to learn and move with the times and assimilate new information and read new books and take their continuing education classes and all that stuff, and actually like taking their continuing education classes, that you want an active learner as a doctor because you want somebody who's going to be constantly engaged and then also on the forefront of what's changing and happening. That's what we want for patients too, that we want patients who are constantly engaging in new material, learning new things, that you can come and on a visit-to-visit basis, you could ask us a question and say, hey, I'm struggling with whatever, but to give you a 2 to 5 minute answer at an adjustment, that's not where it's at. So our patients, this is something that we plan on regularly doing for you guys on different topics all the time so that, and listen, any one topic may not interest you the most, but I promise you, they're all relevant. So we're gonna ask you to come to a couple a year and that you continue to learn as you're a patient in our office. And one of the things I was talking to the doctors about as we were huddling this morning, we were praying over today, was that patients' lives, their health will change through their care, but their lives will transform through events like this and what they learn. And I've seen that happen. I've seen people totally shift, lose 20, 30 pounds, get off of multiple medications, these things. And it happened because everything changes or shifts in a moment of decision. And those moments of decision tend to come on the heels of fresh perspective. And so one of the things we want to offer you today isn't just a bunch of facts. We want to offer you an exciting perspective because where we're at today isn't good. And I'm not talking about election stuff, but like we're going to leave that where it is, okay? Regardless of what side you're on, we're going to leave that back there for today. But I'm excited about one thing about the election stuff is the potential that healthcare is going to be looked at through a different lens. And especially when it comes to the food and what we're putting in our bodies, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. But here's the current state. And when I say I'm excited about it, it's because right now we're not healthy in the United States. That one study found 74% of people in America are having gastrointestinal issues, including bloating, abdominal pain, diarrhea, all the fun stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of crappy subjects today. Okay? 655,000 people die of heart disease any given year in the United States. That's remarkable. Cancer is responsible for 1 in 6 deaths. 1 in 10 Americans have diabetes. Depression, anxiety, they're so prevalent right now. One piece of research I just read said women over the age of 21, like 1 in 4 are on an antipsychotic or an antidepressant. 1 in 4. That's our moms. That's our teachers, right? And most of these medications come with warnings that there's risk of it being so unstable that you can't even trust your own thoughts sometimes. And there's risk of things like suicide or harming others on these medications that 1 in 4 women over the age of 20 are taking. Now, if you're on those medications, the goal would be, how do we get you healthy again, right? We're going to talk a little bit about neurotransmitters that relate to mood and how there's stuff going on in the gut in relation to that. Dr. Justin's going to share some of that today. So all diseases begin in the gut. Now, I know you guys are like, wait a minute, Dr. Ryan, you told me everything is related to the nervous system. I'm a chiropractic patient. You said that we heal from above, down, inside out, and that our nervous system is the central, the central system of our body, and it controls everything, and that's accurate. That's accurate. There's three major things I want you guys to know. You can write these down. If you guys need note paper, I think there's in your folder, there's going to be some writer-downers today, and I'll even use the word writer-downer if you need a hint as to which ones you should be writing down. Here's a big one. there are 3 major things I want you guys to know about your bodies. Number 1, this is my opinion. I think it's supported also in science, and then I believe it religiously, is that God created your body intelligent, and he is the one who put your potential in you. Everyone in this room has a different potential. When I talk about potential, genetics is a great example of that. We all have something already written inside us that talks about what our potential is. Now, there's this whole new science called epigenetics. So genetics, everybody thinks like your genes are your genes, that's just who you are. As soon as they got done with the Genome Project, they found out that no, that's actually just your potential, both good and bad. And that each one of those genes are like switches that you can turn on and turn off. In fact, not only are they like switches, they're like dimmer switches where you turn them up or you turn them down. And you turn them up or down based on your lifestyle. Some great books to read, Ben Lynch, Dirty Genes. There's another book called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And they talk about how genes aren't what we thought we are. But your potential is in your genes. And the expression of that is influenced by lifestyle. So the number two thing outside of your potential through genes is what we put in our mouths every single day. All diseases begin in the gut. Hippocrates was also known for saying, let thy food be thy medicine. Everybody knows who Hippocrates is? The father of modern medicine. How many medical doctors talk to you about your food being your medicine? Right? We take the Hippocratic Oath, we say he's the father of modern day medicine, and then we do virtually nothing that he talked about. Right? It's a mess. But one of the things you're going to hear as it pertains to your food is you've heard you are what you eat. Right? My dog would eat socks. And he would poop them out the other end, still socks. He didn't absorb any nutrients. He didn't break them down and digest them. He didn't assimilate it into part of his being. They went in socks, they came out socks. Just because you put something in your mouth and it comes out the other end doesn't mean it's food. Okay? Let thy food be thy medicine. My kids used to talk about this term, junk food. And really quickly we had to navigate this. We said, no, there's no such thing as junk food. Food brings life, health. It helps build the tissues in the body and the building blocks. Junk is an interference. It destroys your health. It suppresses your immune system. It jacks up your hormones. It's not junk food. It's either food or it's junk. Right? Writer downer. What diseases begin in the gut? We saw all diseases. Well, surely you don't mean all diseases. Yeah, all diseases. Why? Because once you get inflammation in an area where you're trying to assimilate nutrients and digest them and bring them in, and then the gut becomes dysfunctional, then everything that required those nutrients and or getting rid of excretion now is affected. So every single disease can be affected by an unhealthy or a healthy gut. Autoimmune diseases, brain disorders, cognitive decline, we're going to talk about those neurotransmitters, cancer, all the newest cancer research. If you're looking into the newest stuff in cancer, it's all micronutrient based. They're looking at it's just amazing what they're looking into. Mood disorders, learning disabilities. You don't think so? Give a kid who's sensitive to chemicals red dye number 40. Watch what happens, right? The major premise, this is a overlying just general statement that we want you to know. Your body's designed to heal more than you've been permitted to believe. Your body's designed to heal more than you've been permitted to believe. That your body was created intelligently, and that the word health has a root word, and it's heal, right? Our health is how well we're healing. It's not just your habits alone. How many of you guys know somebody who ate the right things, exercised, and they still ended up diseased? How many of you guys had a family member like my grandfather, smoked, drank, cussed, ate out of a can, called vegetables rabbit food, said, I'm not eating that rabbit food. Like literally, this was him. He never drank water, ever. I don't think I ever saw him drink a glass of water. He drank coffee and he drank beer, and that was it. And he beat cancer 3 times, and he survived 40-something major operations, and he lived into his 80s. And it's like, how in the world is that possible, right? Like, There are people with way better habits who would have died on the table in one of those surgeries, and people who wouldn't have battled the cancer. It's one thing. Our bodies are designed to heal. They're designed to overcome things. And our choices do matter, but what matters more is that we pay attention to the systems that regulate our healing. The one thing my grandfather did have is he had a really strong back and a really strong spine. So we get into the spine and nervous system portion, he had that going for him. Outside of that, he may have had genetics and longevity on his side. When it comes to gut health, I'm pretty sure that wasn't there. The other thing I like is we can all do health better. And that's our goal for today, do health better. We're going to provide you with the right tools. Your job is to use them. That's it. All we can do is provide you guys with the right stuff. Your job is to start incorporating it into your health. What controls the healing of the body? Again, we're going to finish with this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But as a chiropractor, I just want you guys to know, we filter everything through the nervous system and then something called the 5 essentials. The nervous system, the reason we put the nervous system first is because God put it first. When 2 cells came together and they started multiplying, the first thing that formed was your fetal brain. And then that fetal brain grew a tail called the spinal cord. And then literally everything grew out of that. All the intelligence in your entire body started in that part of you. Every cell in your body has ties back to your nervous system, which is awesome. And then in medicine, they never acknowledge this, because do you guys know that chiropractic and medicine started at the same time? Pharmaceutical medicine. Everyone's like, what? Medicine's thousands of years old. You just told me Hippocrates, right? 400 BC. Yeah, but that was like non-pharmaceutical medicine. He said, let your food be your medicine. He was talking about eating. He wasn't talking about pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals started with John Rockefeller, early 1900s. They're all petroleum-based nowadays, almost all of them. Why? Had to do something with that leftover sludge after they made oil. He went around and got grants and went around to all these institutions and got them teaching pharmaceutical medicine, and he single-handedly shut down almost every single holistic healthcare school in the United States, except for chiropractic. And the reason he wasn't able to shut down chiropractic was because we had some forefathers in chiropractic who were tenacious, and they wouldn't be shut down. And what's neat is the difference between the two is this right here. One's called allopathy. The body is a material entity, and it's the sum of its parts, right? You're as healthy as your parts are. You got a gallbladder problem, we treat the gallbladder. If it gets too bad a problem, we pull the gallbladder out. You are only as healthy as the parts you're able to keep healthy, and eventually there's certain parts that can't be replaced, and then we expire, right? You got a bad heart, we'll wait, we'll treat the disease, and eventually we'll try to get you a new heart. That's allopathy. There's one cause to any specific disease. What is the cause? Opposites cure. So take a look at this. This will make sense. Antibiotics, right? You have bad bacteria in your body. What do? Give antibiotics, antibacterial. Viruses, antivirals. Pyretics, so you have too much indigestion, reflux, too much acid, we'll give you an antipyretic, antacid. You're depressed, we'll give you an antidepressant. So it's opposites cure. But what we know nowadays is this, so the word this is rooted in, pharmaceuticals, pharmakeia. Do you guys know what the word pharmakeia comes from? It was on our Instagram last week. It means sorcery. It means witchcraft. So you're not feeling good, and what do? You go to the local sorcerer, and you tell him what doesn't feel good, and he mixes you up a potion, a pill, or an elixir, and you take it, and you feel better. Except for it doesn't address the original cause of the problem, because your antipyretics that are treating indigestion, maybe because you're eating the wrong things, right? Or maybe you're subluxated and the nerves controlling your digestion aren't functioning well. So you take this antipyretic and you feel better, all the while the problem is still there. And every day it's still there. If it was really a problem, what happens with problems by default? They get what? Worse, typically. And it's getting worse. And now you require what? More of the medication, or maybe another potion, pill, or elixir, right? And we keep spell casting with drugs. And we drug ourselves, not into health, we drug ourselves further into disease. And here's the proof of that. Take the person you know on the most medication. They're the healthiest person you know, right? No, they're the least healthy person you know. and take all the medication they're on and then go find the healthiest person you know and give them all that medication and have them start taking it. What happens to their health every single time? It's going to go down because it's not getting to the cause. It's not real. It's not real. Can it provide a solution short term? Absolutely. Does it sometimes save lives? Absolutely. Is it the road to health? Hell no. It's not the road to health. And so we want to talk about what does the opposite of that look like? And it doesn't mean that we never use this. Like my son broke his arm. I didn't give him kale, right? I didn't adjust him. I didn't adjust his broken bone back to healing. But his body was going to heal. We just needed to make sure that bone was set in the right position, and he was in a lot of pain, so they did give him a pain medication to set that bone. But there are times where this can be helpful. But again, this is trauma. This is injury. But this is not where we go for health. This is not health care. What is it? Sick care. These are not health care workers. They're sick care workers. And they'll tell you that. Over here, the body functions as it's coordinated. Energy matters. Diseases exist in the absence of health. That disease is not an entity. It's a lack of proper function. Dis-ease. It's not an entity. Cancer isn't a thing. It's healthy cells that have mutated in order to survive because the environment they were in was not conducive to health, and they had to mutate. So it's the lack of normal function that causes this process called disease, but not an entity called disease. The body's always doing something intelligent. Your symptoms are a sign that your body's on the job. You eat bad fish, you're going to puke or get diarrhea or something, right? And that symptom is not a bad thing. It is a good thing, right? So then we take these symptoms and we start treating the symptoms, which means diminishing them. Like if you have a cough, taking Mucinex and breaking up the stuff, it's been proven that it doesn't help it to come out more. It actually settles in more. And people end up with pneumonia sometimes. Why? Because your body's intelligent. It knows that all these little sticky particles in your lungs need to get together and irritate things enough to where you cough them out. And it's a lot easier to cough out a chunk of something, I know this is gross, than it is a bunch of dispersed tiny minuscule molecules, right? So stuff like Mucinex, all these things, it's like their advertisers like, stop the mucus. Stop it? No. The whole reason it's there is to get it out. It's trapping all the bad bacteria or whatever it is that and your cells were fighting off a virus, and all these white blood cells are aggregating, they're killing all this stuff, and then next thing you know, you got these dead white blood cells, you got to cough them out. You don't want to stop the mucus. But cough up the mucus isn't as attractive, right? Treatment through reestablishing physiological function of the body, getting back to normal. So there's one cause to any disease process in the body, and that one cause is interference. Interference to normal function. Interference can be chemical, it can be emotional, it can be physical. So we want to find those interferences. I think we kind of beat this one already, but I want to share this with you guys. This is pretty crazy. Half of all American adults are on 2 or more drugs. Half of all American children are on a drug for a chronic illness. So now they're telling us this, that most internal functions decline with aging. Most bodily functions peak shortly before age 30. So you'll never be healthier than you were at 30. That's what they're telling you. How about this one? Dr. Ho determined most Americans begin taking prescription drugs by age 40. Most American women are taking them by age 15. The study calculated on average, a newborn boy in 2019 could expect to take prescription drugs for 37 years and a female for 47 years. Wait a minute. We start taking drugs somewhere between 15 and 40, yet our health declines at 30. Do you think it's chicken or it's egg? Right? Is it our health is declining, so we're taking drugs, or is it we start taking drugs and our health starts dramatically declining? The age at which health is declining is getting lower and lower and lower because now there are kids on drugs for a chronic condition. So technically speaking, they're 8 years old, they're on their first drug, their health is now declining. Think about that. I love who published this. You ready? Merck Manuals. One of the largest pharmaceutical makers in the world. or telling you that you're falling apart by age 30. Let me tell you this. You were designed to be healthy for a lifetime. We got to remove the interference, put the right stuff in our body. We got to move. We got to use our bodies the way we're designed to. We got to pay attention to what nature and God intended for us, and you were designed to last a lifetime. Mr. Magruder, how far did you walk here today? About a mile. He got here. I said, how you doing, Mr. Magruder? He said, great. I had a great walk here. How old are you, sir? 76. 76 years old, right? And I say we got to use our bodies. So we're going to go over the dynamic digestive system. What is your digestive system? It's all of this. From the time you put something in your mouth to the time it comes out the other end, that whole thing is your digestive system. Starts with saliva. It actually starts with smell, believe it or not. Smell triggers your saliva. And then it goes all the way through, and there's all these secretory functions and all these things. What we're going to talk a lot about is we're going to be right here today in the intestines, because there's a lot of damage that happens specifically in that area that doesn't allow us to assimilate food and absorb food, or food actually ends up into our bloodstream. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this day. I'm going to share my job today before the other doctors get up is to build some awe and wonderment around your body, so that when they tell you the bad stuff or how to fix the problem, you already feel like pretty excited about your body. So here's the thing. When we put, so I'm going to tell you two quick examples. One is breastfeeding. I was fascinated by this. I learned this when my wife was breastfeeding. But when my wife was breastfeeding, one of the things you do is pumping, right? Because sometimes there's excess, or you might want to save it because you don't know supply, depending on, like even stress can shut it down. So women will pump, have extra breast milk. Well, what's fascinating is if you see breast milk from one day versus breast milk from another day, they look totally different, right? Why? It's mom already has built some immunity in the environment. She's been around for 30 years, right? And she's built some immunity in the environment, and so when she is exposed to people and germs are being passed on or different things, or she's under stress, her body, in order to protect the baby from the thing that she has immunity to, starts producing different makeup in that milk so that now the baby's protected. Isn't that wild? All right, here's another one. It goes the other way. This is fascinating. This is the one that got me. The baby's saliva, as the baby's growing, and at certain times it needs more fat because its nervous system is developing, its brain's developing. Certain times, skeletally it's growing, it needs more minerals. Sometimes it needs more protein because it's starting. And in different days, different things are happening developmentally. The baby's saliva, the brain is putting things in the saliva to signal the woman through the breast tissue, and the woman's breast has signaling receptors on it that takes signals from the saliva that then tell her brain what to do, and it changes what's in the milk, the fat, the protein, the carbohydrate ratio for the baby in real time, right? Now, I'm not here to shame anybody, but that's different than formula. Way different. This is a real-time thing that the body was designed to do. That's fascinating. We do it too. Not breastfeed, but we do it. We do it as well. Here's the thing. Yeah. We're not going there. Not going to do it. When you guys eat food and we're chewing, your saliva does the same thing in your mouth. We've heard people tell you to chew your food. When you chew your food and you're breaking it down, it's called mastication. You're breaking it down, you're chewing it, and it's this mechanical process of grinding it. What are you grinding it into? You're grinding it into the saliva. And there's this chemical reaction that's happening. You're making a mixture in your mouth. And as you're making this mixture in your mouth, your epithelial lining and your tongue have receptors in them that pick up on the signals from the food. There's an electrical thing happening, and it's stimulating your brain, and it's telling your brain what's in your mouth. It's pretty wild. That a certain amount of starch, certain amount of carbohydrates, there's certain fibers in here, there's certain nutrients in here, and your brain's picking this up in real time. And your brain is signaling your gut, telling your gut what's coming, telling your stomach what's coming. Your stomach starts producing pepsinogen and hydrochloric acid and all these things, but it doesn't always produce them in the exact same amounts. It produces them in the amount that's necessary for what's in your mouth. So number one, chew your food, because when you chew your food, you're going to get better signaling and better communication. Number two, what if there's an interference between your mouth and your brain, or your brain and your stomach? What if you have a subluxation in your spine that's putting pressure on the nerves, and those nerve signals are getting interfered with and they're erratic or a little dysfunctional. And your stomach's preparing the mixture, but just not the right way. You see where like something like acid reflux could actually be a spinal nerve issue and not just an organ valve issue? Isn't this wild? So like you're eating food and the more you're chewing it, your body is already telling other areas what's coming. This is fascinating. Like this is not by accident. Like a star didn't spin off in space and threw a bunch of dust and then now this happened. This is by intention. That your creator created you this way. And if we can align ourselves with that and understanding that there is intentionality behind this, the closer we can get to what that intentionality is, the more likely we are to live out our potential of that, what that creator created you for. Okay? That's exciting, right? Right? Two stars whacking together isn't as exciting to me, I don't think, personally. What is a microbiome? It's the key to your digestive system. If somebody evolution, I love you anyway. I'm just so you know, we're allowed to disagree. Your GI tract is a key attribute to your digestive system. Your GI tract contains trillions of bacteria. Trillions. When you take a probiotic, it's crazy, but it'll say like 5 billion CFU of this. When you realize the difference in number between billion and trillion, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like what that means for our gut. Trillions. We have you yourself are trillions of cells. Okay, the bacteria, we look at the bacteria as like not part of you as an entity, like they have their own life form to some degree. They live in us, the bacteria. But if we really looked at it, you have trillions of cells and now you have trillions of bacteria. So you're like hundreds of trillions of things coming together. That's wild. It's wild to think about. And we have to make sure that these things are living in a symbiotic way. The bacteria are there for your health and for your gut. And where do they come from? They come from, the first ones come from breast milk. They're in our gut from breast milk, that there's good bacteria that come through that. That there's bacteria that come from kids crawling around on the floor, picking things up and putting them in their mouth. You ever notice like human beings, like we're born down low to the ground, we crawl around. We're not like giraffes. Giraffes get up and start walking immediately. We crawl around. And every kid that picks something up puts it where first? Right in their mouth. Why? Because they're developing an immune system. They're born with muscles. Do their muscles look like Arnold Schwarzenegger's yet? No. Do they have the potential? Maybe. Right? But they have to do what? Develop them and use them. They have an immune system. Do they have an immune system like you and I yet? No. They have to do what? Develop it and use it. And what does that mean? That they're going to come in contact with germs. And they're going to have a what? An immune response. Is immune response a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Are you sick or are you healthy when you have a cold? Ooh. You ready? Are you sick or healthy? Healthy. You're healthy. It's a healthy immune response. Who wants us staying sick? The pharmaceutical industry. Because if you're sick, then you do what? You try to stop the sickness. You stop the sickness by doing what? Taking a thing to shut down the process of expressing healthy immunity. Coughing, sneezing, all these things, that's health. That's not sickness. And kids have to have immune responses to develop their immune system. We're getting to the gut, I promise you. Digestion, absorption, elimination. These are the three things your gut largely has to do. Your digestive system. Why is your digestive system there? It's there to break things down. It's there to absorb the things you need, and it's there to get rid of the things you don't. That's pretty much it. And then through that process, there are all these other things that are supported because they need nutrients. They need to get rid of waste and all this. There's also things that requires in order to do this. So these key responsibilities, again, from your saliva through your secretory, juices, all these things have to be working well. Absorption, this is getting into the gallbladder, the liver, the small intestine. We need to be absorbing nutrients. Again, if you are eating all the expensive organic food from Whole Foods, but you're not absorbing nutrients well, then it's a wasted effort to some degree. If your digestive system isn't absorbing well, there's a possibility somebody whose might be able to pull the very little nutrition out of McDonald's at a better rate than you're pulling it out of your food from Whole Foods. Remember I talked about the people who did everything right and still ended up diseased, and the people who did everything wrong somehow? Like, there are people that eat McDonald's every day that somehow live to be 80 and aren't on drugs somehow. Like, how's that happen? If you're absorbing things well, you may be absorbing out the very little nutrition that is in there. If you're not absorbing things well, you may be not assimilating a lot of this stuff. And then the last thing is this elimination. Here's the other side, but what if you're getting rid of toxins well? What if you're getting rid of the byproducts of this well and the waste well? What if you're not? You know, if you're not, where does it end up? Bloodstream, allergies, these different things. We'll talk about something called leaky gut. Anything you eat that you're allergic to, at some point in time, probably made its way through your gut, and it shouldn't have, and made its way into your bloodstream, and your body developed an allergic reaction to it because you had this condition. And we're going to teach you how to heal and seal that gut. Your body's always talking. So I have written here, breast milk, saliva example, saliva, brain, stomach connection. So I jumped the gun on that one. You guys already learned. But body signals. Your body is talking. Communication in your body. This is where the nervous system comes in. You are what you eat, but your health is dependent upon the level at which your body can communicate with itself and all of its organs. The body talks. Healing, health is electric in the body. What do I mean by electric? Signaling. Your brain, your nervous system, there's electrical signals. I talked about in the mouth, there was these reactions happening. Those chemical reactions trigger ions, and they trigger mineral channels. They trigger, it's all electric. It's interesting. We're life. When the two cells come together, they've actually been able to, they now can measure the exact second of inception because there's a spark. It's a zinc flash, and they can see it on camera. It flashes. It's electric right from the beginning. It's wild. When you disconnect someone's brain from their body, right, like decapitation, how long do they live? They don't. Chickens live longer. Why? Because part of their brain's below where you decapitate them. True story. Part of their brain's actually in their neck. When you decapitate a human being, they're done instantly. When somebody dies in the hospital, what do they measure to know they're dead? Brain waves, right? Your heart can be stopped. Your lungs can be not moved. You can be not getting great oxygen in the force, but they can't put more brain waves in your body, right? They can keep you artificially. How do they do it? Electricity, right? Healing's electric. So every time we go through this, and Dr. Justin's talking about the gut and this and dopamine and all this, understand it's all about signaling. It's all about the communication. Gastrointestinal symptoms. Dr. Justin's going to come up here. These are the body signals. So we talk about signaling in the body. This is how your body signals you to let you know there's a problem. Your body talks to you. And your body will talk to you through abdominal pain, bloating, constipation, nausea, diarrhea, whatever. Like, if it's not almost unnoticeable and enjoyable, chances are your body is talking to you, right? And so as Dr. Justin comes up here, he's going to talk about a couple of the main conditions that are problematic right now. And then when we come back from the break, we're going to go, how did those happen? How did they develop to some degree? And then Dr. Matt's going to come back up and teach you guys how to heal, seal, repair the gut. And then we'll finish up with some closure and some recap and all that. And we're going to have a great rest of the day. Good? Dr. J, come on up, man.
I'm going to be going through some diseases here. These are pretty prevalent in our society nowadays due to our diet. I apologize to any of you still eating because these are not appetizing sounding. So let's start with leaky gut. So what is leaky gut? This is where you have chronic inflammation in your gut due to diet, stress, anxiety, even NSAID overuse like aspirin, or bacterial overgrowth. It erodes your lining in your intestine over time, okay? When you erode that protective lining, a lot of things are getting in and out of the underlying tissue that shouldn't be there, okay? So leaky gut is more of kind of an umbrella term. You've heard the saying, all roads lead to Rome. So that's kind of how leaky gut is. Like, there's many things that can cause leaky gut, and there's many things that leaky gut causes. But it's more of like a secondary diagnosis. So while it definitely exists, there are multiple root causes that bring it about. There are also multiple conditions like I said, it also causes multiple conditions like celiac disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and things like that. Many, many other things that it can cause. How many people here have heard the term microplastics? Anybody? Okay, it's getting pretty popular, and this is why. Leaky gut is why microplastics are a problem. So whenever the gut lining erodes, those microplastics, which normally shouldn't be getting into our bloodstream, can now enter the bloodstream and then get deposited all over our body. And it goes to places like the brain and even the reproductive system, causing all kinds of issues. Moving on to SIBO, this is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So small intestine, that's where this is occurring. Bacterial overgrowth, bacteria where they shouldn't be. So bacteria in your small intestine. The big takeaway here is that there are two portals of entry. So the bacteria either hitches a ride from food and is not eliminated by stomach acid, or it can make its way up into the small intestine from the large intestine. So if you have a lack of gut motility, so things aren't moving or they're moving too slowly, it could start to back up into the small intestine, okay? And that leads to seeding of bacteria there. And then you have the other portal of entry. So if you're on like Prilosec or an antacid, that can stop your stomach or neutralize the stomach acid that's there. So things that you eat, the bacteria hitch a ride on that, and then they get seeded in the small intestine and cause bacterial overgrowth. So when you introduce new bacteria in places it wasn't before, it has the ability to take over, to invade where good bacteria are supposed to be, and they like that place. They're getting what they need to thrive, and so it just causes a massive explosion there. So SIBO can lead to leaky gut as well. Like I said before, your immune system tries very hard to eliminate that bacterial overgrowth, and that war that escalates between the bacteria and your immune system erodes the gut lining. So 80% of people who have irritable bowel syndrome have SIBO. So if you've got all those things that Dr. Ryan went over here, if you've got any one of those, the chances are really high that you have SIBO. So getting checked out for that is really important. Yes?
How do we get checked out then?
There's different ways to do that. That's a good question. If you see me after, we can talk about that. Cool?
Okay.
So over 70% of the immune system is housed in the gut. That should tell you how important that is to fighting off infection. There's something called gut-associated lymph tissue, and that, am I not loud enough?
Just that thing just kicked on, and I can tell from the background.
Testing. Test. That's better. All right. Were you guys hearing me before or no? Okay. All right. Cool. So this is an important one. Serotonin is serotonin. That's a huge topic. We could seriously talk a week about serotonin and not even cover half of it. It's a massive. It's a huge molecule. It works as a neurotransmitter as well as a hormone in our body. It's the molecule that causes us to feel connected to one another. So, the one that the illustration that Dr. Ryan likes to use is if you go to lunch and you eat a big lunch of Chinese food and you just feel like horrible the rest of the day, or you go back to work and your coworker is more annoying than usual. That's not your coworker, that's you. So that's why it's really important for us to make sure that we are staying really healthy, because we want to connect to you guys. When we're back here adjusting you, we got to stay good for you guys. So, and we want you to go home and stay connected to your children and your family. So it's all about you. Like I said, it's a hormone and neurotransmitter. The fact that virtually all of it is produced in the gut tells us how important the gut is to our nervous system. It plays a protective role in the gut. So what it can do is it speeds up gut processes if a toxin is detected. So your body uses serotonin as a way to say, get that toxin out of here one way or the other. It also plays a role in reducing appetite while eating. So let's move on here. Dopamine, another huge neurotransmitter produced in the gut. Half of it's produced in the gut. That's the feel-good molecule. You can basically train yourself to be addicted to anything. You're not actually addicted to things. You're addicted to the dopamine hit. So when you get that like on social media, that's a dopamine hit. If you're eating bad foods, you can get a dopamine hit from that. So if you're working out, you can actually train yourself to get a dopamine hit from that and feel good. It's just what your habits are creating there. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a small break, and we're going to come back, and Dr. Ryan's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
All right, Dr. Justin hit on some things I loved. So the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and the leaky gut. I think one of the things that, for me, I really appreciate about what's happening now is that for the first time in like 30 years, I've been practicing for about 16. Dr. Matt's been practicing for about 1 million. But one of the things for me that I'm appreciative of is that the medical community is starting to catch up a little bit. That leaky gut, we call it leaky gut. And we've called it leaky gut for like 30 years, maybe even longer. And if you went to a doctor 20 years ago and told them you had leaky gut, they'd be like, there's no such thing as leaky gut. Like that's what these witch doctors, voodoo, like it's funny, I called them the witch doctors earlier, and then that's what we used to get. But they're like, oh, that's a foo-foo, fake medicine term, blah, blah. So then a few years ago, they started creating drugs to treat a condition. And the first time I heard the condition, I was like, you scoundrels. Because the condition is gastrointestinal semi-permeability. What does it mean? Leaky gut. They know how to take something good and just make it horrible in terms of like harder to understand. Like that's the goal. You guys get that? They want you guys to think that your health is more complicated than it is. They want you to think that your health is too complicated for you to understand and too challenging for you to try to correct on your own. And in my opinion, what a real doctor should be doing is trying to make your health less complicated for you and show you that health isn't complicated. Sickness is. Drugs are. Diagnosis is. It's complicated. You guys ever watch an episode of House? They're never right the first time, right? How long does it take them? They've done studies on this. They did a study at Johns Hopkins University, and they showed that they're right on their initial diagnosis 15% of the time. 15%. They did another study, and they showed how much of medicine follows the true scientific method of like developing a hypothesis and then testing, like how much of it do they actually follow the scientific method? And the number was near identical, it's 15%. So it's like, wait, they don't follow anything really scientific. It's a lot of just guesswork, and no wonder they're only right 15% of the time, right? The beautiful thing about chiropractic and about looking at the body from this way is the first thing we're telling you to do is pay attention to what your body is telling you, pay attention to what it's doing, and then we're not trying to treat the problem. We're trying to find areas, and most people right away could name 1 or 2 or 3, and I'm not telling you it's always fun, but we're going to try to find the areas where we know there's interference and then find other ways that we could support healing in those areas in our body, okay? So when it comes to SIBO, small intestinal bacterial growth, I know you asked Dr. Justin a question, and he can give you specifics later, but you can get tested for this stuff. We used to have a functional medicine practitioner in office. Her name was Christy. She has since moved on. She was driving an hour and a half into work every day. We're going to be hiring another one in the future because one of our goals is to become the answer to anything non-emergency and non-surgical for you guys, to have a functional medicine practitioner here, have a massage therapist here. But functional medicine, unfortunately, largely isn't covered by insurance. So it's all cash. Why? Because insurance and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies, they're all working together. And they're creating a need for each other. And then anything that's outside of that, that's not the allopathic model, that's the vitalistic model, oh, we don't cover that. And they create this false identity that like that's not real healthcare, which is not true. They just don't start doing it until they've figured out how to get reimbursed for it. There are tests that you can take out there. There are tests you can order, and you can send in samples, and you'll get a report back. And you may not have somebody coaching you through that report, but there are tests you can go on, find functional medicine testing online. One of the tests that you take for the SIBO test is called a GI effects test. GI, like gastrointestinal, GI effects test. But just so you guys know, when you do these testings, they're taking samples. Saliva, blood, urine, other things. So a GI effects test is the other thing. And you have to do it in a box and send it in. And so, but that's how they find out if you actually have it. Here's the thing. And Dr. Justin said this, I'm going to reiterate. If you have acid reflux, if you have indigestion, if you have bloating, the research says 80% of those people have small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. That there's either bacteria that shouldn't be there that are, or bacteria that are in a place where they shouldn't be. And the protocol that Dr. Matt's going to go over is the solution to it. So whether you get tested, or you think you have it, or you think you don't have it, going through the protocol he's going to share, it's not going to do any harm. If anything, your healthy gut will only be healthy still, right? And you'll just clean it out a little more. But if it's unhealthy, he's going to show you how to clean it out and rebuild it and get it healthy again. Cool? Does that make sense? So that was the medical terminology. Now we're going to go through some of the pillars and what we're looking at. So maldigestion, inflammation, dysbiosis, metabolic imbalance, infection. What do those cause? They cause leaky gut. They cause Crohn's disease. They cause SIBO. So these things cause the medical diagnosis, right? When you get these things happening out of order, then we can finally have enough definitive crap happening that we can put a new name to it. But this is what we need to go through. So now, number one, maldigestion. Typically, we're talking about pancreatic insufficiency and or a sluggish gallbladder. So maldigestion is when we're not breaking things down well. What does the pancreas do? It helps regulate blood sugar. What does the gallbladder do? One of the big things is it helps to regulate fat and how fat moves throughout the body. That's oversimplification, but that's pretty much what they do, okay? The pancreas, a lot of metabolic processes, energy systems, et cetera, are built on how well that pancreas is functioning, and if it's hypersensitive, or if it's actually gotten to the point where now you've overstimulated so much that it's like not even working, and your gallbladder is the same way. So this is what we're talking about. Now, one of the things that helps to regulate both, and the reason why both these get bound down, is either too much sugar or the wrong fats. Those are the big reasons. Too much sugar or the wrong fats. Sugar, when I say sugar, I don't mean eating an apple. When I say sugar, I don't mean what's naturally in milk, like lactose, or what's naturally in a potato maybe. When I say sugar, I'm talking mainly about added sugar. Well, what about palm sugar? Yes, added sugar. What about coconut sugar? Yes, added sugar. What about, and then also sugar substitutes? They do the exact same thing in most cases that sugar do. They just do it through different pathways. And you're like, well, Dr. Ryan, you said I could use stevia. Yeah, like small amounts, but like the idea that we want everything sweet, that's the bigger problem we need to deal with, that we need to get used to things not being sweet. Like everything in the United States has sugar added to it, everything. And in the United States, we have double the amount of sugar in everything that they do in other countries. Americans go to certain other countries like their food was bland. You mean it's not loaded with sugar? Like that's what you mean. You want their food to taste better? Just bring a box of Domino sugar with you, and you'll feel right at home. But the amount of added sugar is what we really need to be looking at. There's some research that shows that if your sugar intake of added sugars is over 100 grams a day, which that sounds like a lot. It's not hard to get to. Like, what's in a Coke? Does anybody know? 60 something. Holy crap. 1 can. If it's over 100 grams a day, it'll suppress your immune system by over 50% for over 72 hours. Now, if you're having a Coke every day, and then God knows there's sugar and everything else, and you're eating over 100 grams every single day, then what happens is your immune system is never functioning at its full potential. It's only functioning at 50%. This is why during COVID, people would come in, and they're like, you're not worried about all this stuff? So just so you guys know, full disclosure, I'm going to be completely open with you, especially newer people. We didn't require masks. We didn't. We didn't require vaccines. We didn't require masks. My staff weren't wearing masks. And I had a guy come to me one time. His name was Charles. He said, you're not worried about this? I said, no, not really. Not any more than I would be the flu or anything else. And I said, but when you understand how viruses work, whenever you realize germs don't make people sick, viruses don't make people sick, weak immune systems do. And I work really hard to make sure that one of my phrases is not in this body, right? Not in this body. And I work really hard to make sure that that's up here. I try to limit the sugar. I try to do these things. So when we were going through this time, this guy came to me. He said, well, should I be worried about it? And I said, no, not unless you have 2.5 comorbidities and you consume over 100 grams of sugar in a day. And his eyes got like this big. And he's like, well, I have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And I have, I'm pre-diabetic. And yeah, I mean, I still eat a lot of sugar. And I said, well, good luck. and he looked at me and I said, I'm joking, but like, what are you going to do about it? You're going to go run off and get an experimental vaccine and that's going to solve the problem? Like, that's not why you're going to get it. And so the question was then, well, then what do I do? And I said, well, you get your nutrition under control and you start exercising. And I said, here, follow this. And I gave him a ketogenic version of what we call our advanced plan. And he started exercising every day and he lost 60 pounds. And guess what happened? His blood sugar went back into normal ranges. He was no longer pre-diabetic. His blood pressure came down. His cholesterol went back to normal. He had 0 comorbidities. He's now consuming less than 100 grams of sugar a day. And guess who was no longer that fearful of corona? He actually got diagnosed with it, but never had a symptom. Right? Isn't that crazy? So that's where there's liberty in this. And when you really start to understand how your body works, it's empowering. That's another thing. A doctor, they should be empowering you to make better decisions. In fact, the medical field frequently will say, the reason we give people drugs is because they don't want to change their lifestyle. Bull crap. You've never inspired them to change their lifestyle, right? I got off on a tangent there. Healthy fats. So why do I talk about healthy fats in relation to bad fats and sugar? Because this is what the bad fats and the sugar replaced. That these were the high-calorie foods that were our regular foods. And then what happened is back about 30 years ago, they started this whole false narrative that you had to start watching your calories, particularly from what? Fat. And what did they replace the fat with? They replaced it with sugar. And then when they did use fat, they used these hydrogenated seed-based oils. These seed-based oils are pretty toxic for our bodies. They're hard to get. Have you ever seen a seed? How much oil do you think you could get out of a seed? Right? In nature, like, number one, we wouldn't be pressing seeds for oil. Like, olives are much easier to get oil out of. Coconut is a lot easier to get oil out of. But most seeds are not easy to get oil out of. Those seed-based oils, our bodies don't do very well with them. When we look at what oils do, what healthy fats do, the oils we want olive oil, we want coconut oil, avocado oil is a pretty decent one. We want oils and fats that come from animal meat, especially pasture-raised animal meat. We want fats that come from things like nuts. We want fats but we want to try to stay away from the highly processed stuff. The seed oils are highly processed. Again, organic canola oil, who cares? Like, canola oil is not a healthy oil. Its smoke point's lower. Like with these healthier oils, if they're really true, and olive oil, for instance, is highly adulterated nowadays. Actually, you can watch a documentary on this. The olive oil market is actually largely fraudulent. That's not olive oil. So we have a store right up the road called the Spicy Olive. They sell premium olive oil. They can actually show you their smoke points on their olive oil, and the free fatty acid content is so high that you can cook with this stuff in a pan and it doesn't smoke and turn black. If your olive oil smokes and turns black, it's probably actually not olive oil. It's really weird that this is happening, but it's crazy. This is why I was getting excited about RFK, because he's like, let's get rid of them all. I'm like, yeah, mutiny.
Extra virgin olive oil is not olive oil?
No, some of it is, but it's almost impossible to tell. So that's why having a trusted source, the same way as having a trusted farmer. So again, we're blessed to have the Spicy Olive right over here. There are places online you can go and they'll show you that they harvest it properly and that. But if you're just going off of Kroger's shelf, it's kind of impossible to know.
My boyfriend he works at Kroger. He was saying that the less amount of places that it goes to, then it's more likely that there's less added things because it's like there's not as many sources that it has.
Yeah, if it's direct from the source. Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, gallbladder. What you're like, Dr. Ryan, I don't have my gallbladder. Okay, so here's the thing. If I talked to a patient the other day that was going through this, and she had already made her mind up, and if you have already made a decision and your gallbladder's missing, this segment for a second here is not for you. However, it's important that you still understand this. But if you are currently having gallbladder distress, when you go into the doctor and you're having pain in an area and they say, oh, it's your gallbladder, and they say, oh man, it's blocked up, it's only functioning at, and they'll tell you, and it's usually 50% or less, right? To be diseased. It's like, oh, it's blocked up, it's functioning at 30%. Okay, they take it out. What percentage is it functioning at now? Right? Think about that. And I know that, but that's for real. Can you cleanse your gallbladder? Yes, you can. If you're having a gallbladder issue, write this down. The name is Hulda. That's first name. Hulda. Last name, Clark, C-L-A-R-K. I believe, might have an E on the end, but I think it's C-L-A-R-K. Hulda Clark, and then you're going to search gallbladder cleanse, and that gallbladder cleanse is amazing. Within about 72 hours, you'll be ejecting gallbladder stones like wild. That's been around. It's been tried and proven for years. Guess what it requires? Some sort of acid, typically either apple cider vinegar, lemon, or whatever. And then on the other side of it, they use olive oil, and they actually get the gallbladder constricting and releasing, and then you'll get rid of all those gallstones. Now, if you have gallbladder insufficiency, it's not stones. They're just saying it's not working. Probably subluxation, the nerves going to the gallbladder. So those are the two major things. Now, if you don't have your gallbladder, one of the best practices you can get into is every day consuming some apple cider vinegar. Every day. Maybe even a little bit with every meal. We're not talking about ounces of it. We're talking about a half ounce to maybe an ounce at tops. You can mix it with some water. You can even mix it with a little tiny bit of apple juice and drink it. And that will help to break down and emulsify fats within your digestive system, kind of the same way your gallbladder would have. Does that make sense? That's a great practice for anybody to get into, even if you have a gallbladder, because it just takes some of the stress off your gallbladder. Helpful? Awesome. If you lost your gallbladder, just so you know, and you don't do that, your risk of heart disease goes up by like 400%. Because the gallbladder was there for a reason. It was there to help break down the fats. So taking gallbladder enzymes is another way, but that apple cider vinegar will do the trick. Inflammation. In the gut, this is calprotectin. There's EPX and fecal secretory IgA. Those are what these GI effect stool tests test for. There's a protein released by white blood cells in the gut that they can measure to know if there's inflammation in the gut. Histamine reaction in the gut, they can measure for that. And fecal secretory IgA is in the mucosal lining of the gut. If you have inflammation in your gut, what happens is, if that inflammation is there, you could be eating healthy food still, and it'll irritate your gut, right? It's like, anybody ever like whacked their thumb with a hammer or something, like, or slammed it in a door? Like, you don't have to keep hitting it in order for it to hurt. If you just like touch something, you're like, damn, that hurt. Once your gut's inflamed, your digestion, and now just digesting regular food is going to keep irritating it, right? And so people are like, but the inflammation, how do we calm that down? Here's best way you can calm it down: fasting. Start with one day, and then start incorporating it once a week or so, and then try to work up to a 3-day fast. I just did one the other day. Doctors will tell you. I told them on day 2, like, how you feeling? I'm like, my energy is through the roof right now, 2 days in. 3rd day, I felt good. My wife goes, you're going to eat today? I made it 3.5 days. And I woke up, and the next day I was like, she goes, how long are you going to do this for? And I was like, I think I could go another 4 or 5 days, honestly, because after day 2, you're like, you're just not hungry. But a couple-day fast, you're not irritating it, right? It'll take all the stress off the gut. You're not putting in anything to irritate it, even good stuff, but you're definitely not feeding it with the bad stuff. So a water fast, just drinking water. People ask me, like, what's allowed? Water, you can add some minerals to the water, will help you from feeling fatigued. Just add some pink Himalayan salt to it. I would encourage you not to, because caffeine can be one of the things that can really irritate the digestive system. Make up your own rules, but try to get it as close to nothing as possible. Again, one day really isn't that hard, but the first day is actually the hardest day. Once you get past the first day, it's actually about 18 hours in, you're like feeling pretty good. I did one time, I was going to do a 3-day, I ended up doing a 7-day. And what's funny is on day 7, I wasn't hungry. I woke up on day 8, my wife's like, what made you break it? I was like, I just kind of wanted to eat today. I got tired of not eating. But it was funny, I was 7 days in. I had a patient do a 40-day. He did the Christ fast and did a 40-day fast. And he told me about day like 28 or so was when he would smell food and be like, oh, like food again. And but what's interesting is he went all 40 days. Fasting is actually really good for you. The Bible talks about prayer and fasting together. Like, and there's something about prayer and approaching God, but most of the time prayer is actually about us, changing us and our hearts. But there's something about fasting that not satiating our body has an effect on how we think. It has an effect on just our overall, my energy was different. My wife was like, what's been going on with you the last few days? She didn't know I was fasting at first. She's like, what's been going on? Something's different. And it's just that fasting was a shift. I came in and did a team meeting with the doctors. I was like on fire for a team meeting one day, and they're like, oh, we've been waiting for this for a while. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm fasting right now. I'm back to eating at the moment, but I think that for me was a signal to I don't do it enough. It's only the second time I've done it in probably 10 years. So I'm just sharing with you guys from my personal experience. I think it's something we should incorporate more. But if you have inflammation, that's the best way to get to it. All right, metabolic imbalances, referring primarily to short-chain fatty acids. How do these get out of whack? We just consume too much of the wrong fats, and it creates all these metabolic disturbances. Listen to Gary Brecka, listen to Dr. Josh Axe, listen to any of these doctors, and what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you that we got to get rid of the seed oils, we got to start eating real fat, and we got to reduce the sugar. Those are the main things. You notice how all the solutions kind of come back to the same thing. I'll have patients tell me all the time. I had a lady the other day. She came in and she said, I'm in all this pain. I don't know what's going on. And we talked through her adjustments, talked through some things. And then I said, well, then let's talk about your nutrition. And she said, I eat everything I'm supposed to. I said, okay, let's log it for a few days. She goes, I log it. I said, all right, I want to see it. So print it off and send it to me. She's like, well, and it boiled down to either you're not logging everything and you're only logging certain things, or you are logging it and you don't want me to see it. But I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you. And a lot of times people are like, well, I eat really well, but there's like 1 or 2 habits that they have that are there that it's like, well, that's it. That's the thing. Get rid of that. And it all starts to calm down. We can't put poison in our body and expect health. You know? And so my dad, I'll give you an example with my dad. We were talking about digestion. He goes, every morning I can have coffee or I can have breakfast. But if I have coffee and I have breakfast, watch out. Like, it's a mess. He's like, the other day, like, I just stopped 3 times on the way to work because, I wasn't going to make it. And I'm like, where do you get your coffee? Because I know how he eats. My mom makes all the food and it's pretty clean. I go, where do you get your coffee? He goes, I love going up. There's a place called Ridley's up the road, Ridley's Muffins. I'm like, what kind of coffee do you get, just out of curiosity? He goes, oh, my favorite's their hazelnut. I said, okay. Go in there and ask him, say, hey, can I see the bag of beans? Are the beans roasted and then you flavor it with syrup, or are the beans actually flavored? And he said, oh, the beans are flavored. I said, all right, go ahead and ask him to see the beans. And he saw the beans. I said, look at the ingredients. He took a picture of it. And I remember he sent me, he's like, what the? It had polyethylene glycol. Polyethylene glycol. What's polyethylene glycol? PEG. Do you guys know what it is? It's in antifreeze. Guess what else it's in? Miralax. What does Miralax make you do? Crap. It's a drug that loosens your intestines. And they use it, why? Because it holds flavor really well. And so they roast these beans, and they have a peg in there to hold the hazelnut flavor, but he's drinking a liquid solvent, right? And if there's no food in there, it's not as big of a problem. But if there's food in there, it's like, fire in the hole, right? And so he literally got really ticked off. And then here's what happens. He didn't drink that for a while. And then one day, my mom's like, hey, let's go over to Ridley's, get him up, whatever. And he's like, hey, and he's like, I'll just have one. I just miss that taste. And so got back in the habit of it. I just talked to him. This was years ago that happened. I just talked to him the other day. I said, hey, do you ever have any of those digestive issues still? He goes, only if I go to Ridley's. And it's like, it was like a moth to a flame. You know what I mean? And what's weird is even when we know, we go back to doing these things. And this is disgusting, but the Bible talks about us going back to sin, like a dog going back to its own vomit. Like, it can't help it sometimes. Like, that was good the first time. I'm going to go back to it. But we got to break this. We got to break this cycle. We got to break this cycle. And when I say sin, I don't mean the big 10 ones. I mean, it's just doing things that are falling short of what he intended for us to live out our greatest potential, right? Sin is missing the mark of perfection. Are we going to be perfect? No, but our goal is to try to reduce the things that we can in order to try to maximize our potential. When we talk about max living, all these M's on the board, max living is about trying to maximize our potential. We're not content with living below our potential. Dysbiosis, gut microbiome, all this means is bacteria are not functioning the way they should be functioning. So what Dr. Justin talked about with SIBO and all this, the bacteria are functioning erratically. There's a wrong bacteria in the wrong places. There's the right bacteria in the wrong places. That dysbiosis is when the gut is dysfunctional. The bacteria, the living matter in your gut is being dysfunctional. Why is it dysfunctional? Throwing antibiotics into it. Dr. Matt's going to go over that in a second. Antibiotics. What is the big one that all of us were exposed to, almost all of us were exposed to, in the first 2 years of our life, multiple times over at wellness checks? Vaccines. What do vaccines contain? If you look at a vaccine, and I can show you the list, and you go by every single chemical in there, all those chemicals are listed on an MSDS sheet as neurotoxin, nephrotoxin, gastrotoxin, nephrotoxin. Your kidneys, they're known to create damage to cells in the body. They're known to. Part of the whole philosophy of vaccines is we want to piss off the body so it'll pay attention to what we're putting into it. We put some of the virus in, and then we put all these adjuvants and all these other bullcrap chemicals in there that the body hates, so it'll fight it, so that it'll fight this one little thing that we're putting in there and develop some very short-term immunity that lasts maybe a couple years, which is why you have to get boosters, which is why the vaccine schedule went from 13 when I was a kid to 80-something vaccines right now. 80-something. When are we going to stop? Right now, they're creating vaccines for all you guys, adults. There's like 30,000 new vaccines being developed right now in the pipeline. And the first one to get to market is the one who's going to do it. They're going to have vaccines for high blood pressure. They're going to have vaccines for cholesterol. Have you guys noticed that all the medications now coming out, when you hear it, they're injectables? They're all injectables. Why? Because if they can get it on the vaccine schedule, you're not allowed to sue vaccine makers at the moment. They're indemnified. GlaxoSmithKline paid out $30-something billion a few years ago in a lawsuit. They're trying to not do that. So they're taking every single condition and they're trying to create an injectable for it. and call it a vaccine when it's not a vaccine. It's a biologic. But it's not actually protecting you. God, let's hope so. Let's hope so, because it needs to change. But here's the reality. We can't wait for politicians to change it. We can't wait for Kellogg to self-police themselves on their ingredients, or Heinz ketchup, or whatever. What we have to do is we have to start taking care of our bodies better, right? You can say no to a vaccine. I promise you can. My kids have never had one. My wife was never vaccinated. When I met her, it saved me from, I thought I was going to have a really tough conversation one day. When I met her, the first two things I told her was, you have to break up with your boyfriend. That was number one. Before we can date. And then number two was, you have to go see a chiropractor before I'll go out with you. Because I wasn't going to get into a relationship with somebody who didn't understand or wasn't going to buy into what I do. And I knew that in the future, I wanted my kids to be raised in this lifestyle, and I didn't want to have that battle. And then I found out that she was brought up in a way where she had never even received a vaccine herself. So I just love that. My kids were breastfed. She was breastfed. I was breastfed. Some of the research on dysbiosis, right here shows, how did I do that? Dysbiosis is on my screen. Oh, there it is. I'll go back to this. Dysbiosis, some of the ways that dysbiosis, we keep it under control, is a breastfed child who was raised by a breastfed child. Like a mom was breastfed and then she breastfed her kid. Some of the strongest gut health and some of the strongest immune health, you'll see. They say at least 2 generations. But Dr. Ryan, I couldn't breastfeed. I didn't produce any milk. There are people out there who will donate their milk. That's better than the alternative with formulas. But again, remember, the reason it was a mom and then another mom was because genetically we pass on all that information through that breast milk. And so some people are like, hey, I've had these problems in my life. Well, what if your parents, what if you're like, I was never vaccinated, I never took antibiotics, I never ate like that, but I have all these allergies. Well, what if 2 generations back, this person was on a bunch of antibiotics, this person had leaky gut, this person's food made its way into their gut stream, their body developed allergies to protein molecules and the latex that was in a shot and all these other things. And then genetically, remember, they pass you on your potential, both good and bad. So they pass on this potential to you, and you now have these inflammatory things happening based on information that you received from this person over here through both the cells coming together and the DNA, which is encoded, and maybe even through the nutrition of that person. And we pass this on. So now we have work to do, and it's not even our fault, right? This is why this stuff really matters. Like our decisions, especially our decisions before we reproduce, have a huge impact on the children that we have. And so for me, that was a huge blessing. So if you're like, oh man, my family, my mom's family, her last name is Sick. It's Kronk in German. And it's shortened from Cronkite. And Cronkite means sick head. And all my mom's sisters and brothers have had their thyroids radiated, removed, Graves' disease, horrible thyroids. And then a lot of them have mental disorders, depression, anxiety, all this stuff. Sick head, right? When they're handing out names, that's not the one you want. But this is just, it just shows that in that genetic potential, right? But my brother and I were raised, that was my mom. Then my dad had the other side. My mom was raised pretty unhealthy. My dad was raised pretty healthy. And then they made a decision. And then we were under chiropractic care at a young age. They stopped giving us shots. They stopped giving us antibiotics. And my brother and I and my other brother, there's going to be 9 kids that we have, like the grandchildren. Those kids have never had any medical intervention other than a broken arm, a swallowed quarter. But they've never been on antibiotics. They were breastfed. They ate organically. They've been adjusted. Those kids are healthy. So you can break it in a generation too. I got to keep going, but I could go on this forever. Dysbiosis, so the gut micro, glyphosate. The chemical glyphosate, when people talk about Crohn's, they talk about digestive wheat. If you read the book Wheat Belly, Grains, Grain Brain, the book Grain Brain, it's not, the wheat and the grains don't even resemble the wheat and the grains anciently that we used to use. They're these hybridized versions of it that they don't even resemble it. Now on top of that, with wheat and grain stuff, if it's commercial, they bleach them, they add in all these other chemicals, they add folic acid, which actually is not healthy for us. Folate is, but not folic acid. And then on top of that, all that wheat is sprayed with this chemical called glyphosate. Glyphosate is, when you eat it, it will destroy everything in the gut. It's a forever chemical, it's a pesticide. And one of the things about glyphosate is now we're actually finding glyphosate, genetically we're seeing it in organic wheat. Why? Because I said forever chemical. When you spray it, what happens? It rains, where does it go? Into the water supply. The water supply gets shared. Like, we live on one planet, right? A farmer over here has an inorganic farm, and one down the stream has an organic farm. Now all that glyphosate's washing down and going to this other. So it's impossible to keep the food supply clean when we're allowing poison to be used on crop, because it affects all the crop. We don't even have a choice after a while. Okay? I hit that dysbiosis for a minute. Good bacteria is essential for health of the microbiome. Dr. Matt's going to talk about this, so I'm going to back off this for a little bit. Where are the best areas to get it? These are the food-based areas. So if you do the gut cleansing protocol, you're going to be using products that have this. But when you're not on that protocol and you're just eating healthy, these are things you want to put in your nutrition on a regular basis. Whole milk, grass-fed, plain yogurt. Ideally, even going to farms, finding like raw, like from unpasteurized milk, awesome, good bacteria. Sauerkraut, my kids love sauerkraut. It's interesting, not even cooked, they love it raw. Love sauerkraut. Kefir, if you prefer to drink your yogurt. Tempeh and kimchi. If you notice, a lot of the things on this list are things that come from other cultures, and that we don't do them in the United States. But almost every other culture does a version of it. Germans and sauerkraut, kimchi and Asian cultures, right? You go kefir, if you go down to like South Africa, they'll leave their milk out on their counter. It's just really interesting, but every other culture other than the United States does. You know what else every other culture does? Herbs, lots of herbs. They use 70 times the amount of herbs that we do. What's a great way to get herbs in your diet? More tea, less coffee. Different teas. Ayurvedic teas that have lots of herbs in them, herbal teas. Not just, sleepy time tea or whatever, that's great, but like herbal teas are awesome for you. Another way is, using more herbs on your food and learning how to cook with herbs. I mean, in the United States, we use about like 6, right? Maybe 8 if you add in like sage and tarragon every now and then. But we use what? Like oregano, we use mint, we use parsley, we use maybe some cilantro, garlic, but we don't use a lot of them. Other cultures that use a lot of them, there's a lot of health benefits to that. Gut dysbiosis leaked to hypertension. What? I went to my doctor, he told me I had blood pressure. He told me it was stress and salt. He never talked to me about my gut. Why? They don't know. They don't read the literature. I've had people go to their doctor and say, I was told that my gut could have something to do with it. They say, your gut has nothing to do with your blood pressure. Published medical research right here from the Journal of Hypertension in 2015, for God's sakes, says that your dysbiosis in your gut can cause your blood pressure to go up. Isn't that interesting? Infections. So when you've had an infection, what follows infection a lot of times? Antibiotics, right? And anytime we take an antibiotic, the research says that we can destroy the entire gut microbiome, the entire thing. So if you have been on an antibiotic and you haven't worked on healing the gut, you should do the gut healing protocol we're going to talk about. If you had a history of antibiotics like I did, and you were a kid, you should do the gut healing protocol. I had ear infections and tonsillitis. Before we started under that chiropractic lifestyle, I was on antibiotics for quite a bit. I just had, we just had an employee, her daughter had an infection on her hand. And I feel bad because I didn't take as much time as I should have to explain how to help with that. Because in our house, we use a lot of plant-based medicine, for lack of a better word. And so cilantro, essential oil, has been proven. Johns Hopkins University is a lady by the name of Nicole Parrish showed that cilantro essential oil directly placed on infection or even taken internally will kill strep and staph, like 100% of it, cilantro essential oil, when it's a good source of it, like doTERRA or Young Living or whatever. But that cilantro essential oil, if you can get it on a staph infection, it'll go away fast. If you have strep throat, cilantro essential oil, keep taking it every few hours. You can take it orally. You'll kill strep throat quickly. People who have been on lots of antibiotics get more staph and strep. Why? Because their immune system is destroyed. So then the answer is you go and you take more what? Antibiotics, which is going to make you more susceptible to staph and strep, right? So number one, switching and starting to use things like cilantro on staph and strep. Now there's other oils for other things. We'll teach an essential oil class in the future, and you guys will come to it. But using that will help break the cycle of the antibiotics, but now that individual needs to have their gut healed, sealed, and re-inoculated, right, with bacteria. And so until that happens, the likelihood of continuing infection is there. So infection and antibiotics, like I'm not saying there's never a time. They can be life-saving, but the vast majority of the time, they can be avoided if you know what you're doing, if you know how to do it. 3 steps to heal and recover. Identify the cause, which I think we've talked about most of that just now. We went through the 5 major areas. Remove the interferences. What are the ones we talked about? Chemicals like glyphosate, forever chemicals, antibiotics, potentially vaccines, bad fats, sugar, artificial sweeteners. Those are the big culprits, okay? Restore balance and bring vitality back. So here's the top 5 if you want to avoid for leaky gut, SIBO, all that. Added sugar and artificial sweeteners. That's the easiest one to cut out. That's why I put it at number 1. Damaged fats, mainly seed oils or hydrogenated oils. That's number 2. That's easy too. Refined carbohydrates. What does that mean? It means stuff that's highly processed. Don't use Wonder Bread. Go get your sourdough from the farmer's market, and don't use white processed bread. Don't use getting rid of the processed stuff. And then 4, vaccines, glyphosate, those heavy chemicals, trying to avoid those and detoxify from them. We have a product called Detox System that is designed to get this type of crap out of your system. If you do the gut protocol, you do it once. You don't have to do it over and over. Some people might have to go through it twice sometimes if it's really bad. But if you do the gut protocol, it's a one-time thing. But this detox system is something that I use about twice a year. And I have some people use it as much as once a quarter. It's a 30-day process. And it's about getting chemicals out of your system. The one is about healing the gut and making sure that all that system is working well. The other is simply about we're living under toxic burden all the time, and we don't have a system in our body that's designed to get rid of chemicals that never existed in nature until man started making them. So there are plants and herbs and things that we can use as tools to remove those in high concentrations, and that's what that detox system is. So if you do the gut cleanse protocol, great, you can do detox system later. If you know, like, man, I was breastfed, I've never been on antibiotics, I haven't taken a vaccine in a while, I don't have any of those gut symptoms, distress, the detox system is still something that's great for you to use every few months, maybe once or twice a year, to get the chemicals out of our body, okay?
These events, these workshops are designed to build into you, to expand your knowledge about natural health care, about what we're doing, and how we can help you and your loved ones as the place of Align Chiropractic. So again, I appreciate Dr. Ryan for all he does. So what I'm going to move into is the healing protocol, or what we can actually do to get our gut back where it needs to be, how to get it healing, how to get it going, how to kind of restart it. So I'm going to cover what's called the 4 R's of gut healing. I'll go through these in detail, but just to kind of look at the 4 R's, there's remove, repair, replace, and re-inoculate, and we'll talk about that, the gut, in a systemic way. The first thing that I want to cover is what is typically happening right now. And Dr. Ryan did a great job of already covering this. But the allopathic approach, if there is an infection, I forgot to say this. I'm old school. I use paper, right? I got paper notes, right? Dr. J's up here with his computer. Dr. Ryan's up here, high tech. Yes, I'm old school. I like paper. I forgot them, you know? I made the font larger for me, so thank you. So thank you. But yeah, getting back to the allopathic approach. So when the gut is in distress, when there's an infection, when there's something going on, the normal traditional way is boom, bomb the city. So what does that mean? When there's harmful organisms detected in the gut, the allopathic approach is to bomb the city. So what does that mean? Although that antibiotics may be somewhat effective to remove targeted, keyword, targeted organisms, they also destroy all of the good bacteria in your gut, leading to more difficulties. So, great analogy. How many veterans do we have in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Thank you, veterans. Veterans Day, Monday, right? Thank you, veterans. Marine Corps birthday tomorrow? The 10th, right? It is tomorrow. All right, happy birthday, Marine Corps. At any rate, a military analogy. So let's say, for example, that whoever's in charge of determining things finds a terrorist, like guy on the top 5 list. They find him, they locate him, they're like, all right, he's in this city. Even better, he's in this specific building on the 3rd floor, right? We have the technology for that now. He's right there. We know he's a leader. We're going to take him out, right? What happens nowadays, right, with the technology that our military has is they can fly a little drone over, and boom, very targeted approach, take out the one building. But in this allopathic model, that'd be like dropping a nuclear bomb on the whole city, right? You take out the terrorists, but what's the collateral damage, right? Thousands, if not millions of people, right? So again, we're trying to teach, let's take that stealth, specific, really precise approach. So we're getting rid of the bad bacteria, but we want to keep the healthy bacteria in the gut, okay? So at Max Living, we believe the body has the capacity to heal given the proper resources, and that we're going to go through right now. So phase 1. We've got to remove. Oh, this is the, Dr. Ryan threw this in there. This goes along the lines of that bomb the city. So H. pylori eradication causes, I need my readers, right? Perturbation of the human gut microbiome in young adults. What this research study is basically saying is the more that we're dumping antibiotics into young children, it's wiping out the good flora. It's wiping out everything in the gut, making them more susceptible. Like, what's the number one reason a child gets antibiotics right now? Ear infections, right? So ear infection after ear infection after ear infection, antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. Gut's destroyed. Gut's destroyed. So what this is saying is that this is causing problems in the future because all of the bacteria is gone. It's just wiped clean. So everything that's supposed to be there, everything that's not supposed to be there is gone. So it sets the stage for future problems with bad bacteria taking over. So let's get to the good stuff. So phase number 1 of the R4 protocol is to remove. So you want to primarily remove the bad bacteria, the bad yeast, the bad parasites, and the overgrowth in the gut. Overgrowth in the gut, Dr. J talked about. SIBO, IBS, right? That's where there's overgrowth. We got to get that calmed down. Our approach is, instead of using antibiotics, is to use an ingredient or propriety blend of herbs and botanicals. The remove phase is the first step to gut healing. It's effective against the harmful bacteria, but spares the good bacteria, right? So we're targeting this blend of this remove aspect. This is what it looks like. This is the box, the container. This is targeting bad bacteria, but it's not targeting the good stuff. It's leaving the good bacteria, which is what we want. Here, Dr. Ryan and I, Dr. Justin, were talking about this week, is as I went through this protocol, like people believe, oh, I'm getting this from, my everyday meals, or I'm getting this from, the supplements I'm already taking to help this. I take a probiotic already. I eat yogurt, right? I'll leave that one over there. Anyway, how many of you, and I highlighted this because, again, this is really small print on the bottle, so I have to blow it up. How many of you are getting black walnut every single day in your diet? How many eat black walnuts every day? How many of you eat oregano every day?
What are you, a squirrel?
Possibly. How about clove, thyme, grapefruit seed extract? Anybody getting some grapefruit extract? No. So these are the components of the blend that's in this container, this remove process, to actually start removing the bad bacteria in the gut, but preserving the good bacteria in the gut. Okay? In addition to that, and I'm gonna review the protocol at the end of this, but there's also a microbiome support that is taken in conjunction with the remove support. As you're doing that, that is what's allowing good flora to reestablish itself and strengthen it. The flora in here is actually resistant to antibiotics, and it's resistant to hydrochloric acid or stomach acid, so it's preserved in that. Okay? One of these things in combination, what these two actually do, to break it down very simply, it encourages microbial diversity, so it allows that good flora. It increases the beneficial bacteria as it's decreasing the harmful bacteria. It promotes, everybody listen to this, promotes normal bowel movements, not irregular, right? You get regulated out, and it improves your immune function. Dr. Ryan just talked about that, how the gut relates to our immune system. So it strengthens and supports our immune system. So that's the remove component. After remove, we got to go to repair. So now we've cleaned out all the bad stuff. Now we're going to start repairing the gut and actually getting the gut to heal, all right? So the repair phase, this is referring to repairing the gut. More importantly, it's healing, help healing the epithelial system cells of the gut. So there's these things in your large intestine, small intestine called villi. They're like little fingertips, right? They're close together. They're covered by this lining and things like that. A lot of times when SIBO and leaky gut happen, that lining is stripped away. And that's what leads to those types of situations. This repair phase actually helps repair and cover and coat those villi. It gets in between the little junctions, and it's like putting on a rubber glove that you see the rubber or the gloves that doctors put on. So it gets into the gut, it gets into those cells, it gets into the tight junctions, it gets into the mucosal lining. It helps reestablish that mucosal lining of the gut. And again, Dr. J talked about that leaky gut. Repairing the gut is critical for ensuring a healthy balance of good and bad bacteria, and it protects the gut from harmful invaders. So what's cool about this one, some of the cool ingredients with this, there's aloe in here. Does anybody eat aloe? Anybody consume aloe? Right? Not a lot of us. How about okra? Right? Every day? Anybody eating okra every day or just around the holidays?
I love okra.
Okay. How about licorice? I think there's black licorice root in here. Not the candy. True black licorice. Not the candy. Not the candy. Put your Halloween candy away. The true black licorice, right? But it's the roots that's in there. So again, our products are using herbs, botanical blends to trigger this healing and this repair work. All right. The other thing about the GI repair, number one, it decreases inflammation. So it starts decreasing that inflammatory process. Again, I already said it restores the intestinal lining. It reduces intestinal permeability, right? What is that called? Remember Dr. Ryan just brought the light on that? They call it intestinal permeability or leaky gut, right? So it repairs that permeability in the intestines. It eases cramping, if you cramp up easy. And again, it supports regular bowel movements. So another thing that's just helping things move along through the tract. All right, so now we've got things repaired. Now, what do we got to do? We got to replace. So now with replace, you're supporting the enzymes in the gut that help break our food down. All right? So we're replacing digestive enzymes. We're replacing betaine hydrochloride, which is actually stomach acid. It stimulates our stomach to produce acid at the right amount of level. It also is incorporating some bile salts. Dr. Ryan talked about when your gallbladder's out, right? You don't have your bile salts to help break down fat.
Like you guys got
this
kind of
product,
generous. I told them
repair product
whoever came
is what triggers all of those things to happen.
If anybody
this is basically designed to start digesting food again properly.
All right, cool.
After we've cleaned it out, we started to incorporate it. Now you're putting enzymes back into your gut So
Sorry.
for me, for example, I'm a big meat eater.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it
think
breaks
we
down
kind of,
the carnivore diet that
I
I,
don't know,
eat
we
all the
put our
time.
break
I
a
like to
little
eat
earlier
meat,
or
and
something.
staff will let you know that.
it's so colorful. I
That's
love
what
how pretty it
replace
is.
is. We're replacing
That's what you
those
need to
enzymes.
do, like,
So it helps to
all
break
the,
down carbs
like,
and protein
I
and fat
took a
healthy.
picture one time.
Helps to digest
it was not
gluten
you guys, it
and
was
dairy. If you've got some intolerances to those.
the one
It also
down.
minimizes your gas and your bloating, promotes bowel regularity. There's 4 for 4.
They also
The other
do,
thing
like,
about this is it
vegan
starts to
food.
sustain your energy. So once you get into this phase of replace,
Where is it
you're
now?
working down the line. Now you see your energy
Rooted.
levels starting
We
to
did a
come up
dinner at
naturally.
Rooted one time,
All right,
and
so
I
that's one of the
took, they
benefits
had
of getting
like a
through
sample
this
board, and they
phase.
had all these, and I took the sample board.
Last but not least,
made a square.
you go to
and
replenish.
I took
This
a
is the
picture
last
of
step
it,
in
and
this
it's like,
protocol.
it looks so cool on a white countertop. Like
As
this
far
with
as
all the
replenish
colors.
or reinoculate the digestive system of the gut. We're focusing on the replacing with good
Smell
bacteria,
good.
with probiotics and
Good to see you.
prebiotics. Anybody ever
Great.
heard of
As
prebiotics?
always.
Anybody ever heard of
You guys
that?
have a good
Anybody know what
weekend.
prebiotics are for? Correct. Prebiotics is the food that probiotics need to survive and flourish. So this replace supplement, this is a combination of prebiotics and probiotics. That means the probiotics, which are the good flora, the good bacteria we need, are actually living, they're thriving, they're flourishing. Right? So we've got a food entity and we've got the healthy bacteria. So replenish, it restores the good bacteria, it stimulates healthy digestion. Once again, it promotes regular bowel movements. It balances gut microbiome, and again, it's supporting the immune function. So as far as how this works, this is a 4-month protocol. All right? So if you're looking at this from a 4-month standpoint. Now, I will say this before I go over this in detail. Today's November 9th. If this is something that you're considering, and if your chief objection to considering doing this is, well, Dr. Mattis, November 9th. 3 weeks from now, we're going to have a big holiday where it's all about food. And I'm probably not going to eat the best food that's available. Or a month after that, we've got some other holidays coming up, and I know I'm not going to be eating great. So why would I go on this protocol when I know I'm not going to be eating the best food in the next couple of months? Think about this. 4-month protocol. All right, so let's say November, December, January, February. By the time you get to the end of February, you're getting into early March, what starts happening, right? The sun starts coming out, the leaves start coming out on the trees, the birds are chirping again, right? Springtime, things are coming back to life.
Bathing
right?
suits.
What?
Bathing suits.
Bathing suit season. I was getting there, right? There's this week at the end of March that everybody celebrates in Ohio. It's called spring break, right? Everybody leaves Ohio and they go to Florida or they go somewhere warm. And as Dr. Ryan says, you get in your bathing suits, right? So you start this process now. By month 4, by spring break season, just saying, you're going to be in good shape. Could be in good shape. All right, so let's go over the protocol. So month 1, start with GI remove. You start with GI remove only. Again, what does GI remove do? It gets all the crap out, right? We're cleaning everything out. We're eradicating everything. Once you get into month 2, you're done with your remove, you start doing that microbiome support. So now you're starting to put back in the good flora, the good bacteria, things like that. You're also doing repair at the same time. So month 2, you're doing microbiome support plus GI repair. All right, you're doing those at the same time for 1 month. Month 3, you're done with the microbiome support, you're still doing GI repair, and now you start incorporating GI replace. So you got repair and replace. So you see how these are overlapping, right? So it's not like we're doing one, cold turkey, we're doing another one, cold no. They're building on each other, right? This is a building block system. So as you're doing GI replace, and you can see that's actually from month 2. They changed this from the slide I have. They must have updated it. Yeah, they did. Look at that. So they expanded GI replace, right? This is new protocol. So month 2, microbiome support, GI repair, and you're introducing GI replace. Month 3, GI repair, GI replace, introducing replenish. And then month 4, all you're doing is replace and replenish. So again, you're building on it. One after another, one after another, one after another. It's a step-by-step process, all right? Again, 4-month cycle to do this protocol. Very easy. We're here to help. We want you guys to be able to accomplish the goals that you want to the goals you want to accomplish by getting your gut back in health. And hey, if you go to Florida for spring break or Mexico or wherever you want to go, we can help you get there. So that's the 4R system.
here's what I love about what Dr. Matt just shared, and part of the reason he took the time to walk through each one of those products and to really build the value and help you guys understand that, is because if you go to your medical doctor and you have SIBO, they're gonna like throw some antibiotics at you, and then that's it. And you take them for a month or 14 days, and there's no solution, right? What Dr. Matt just walked through is like, we're gonna help you remove all the crap, then repair the tissue, and then rebuild it and give your gut what it needs for nourishment, and then we're gonna re-inoculate the product. And it's a process, takes 4 months. Why? If you started in the gym today, how different does the mirror look tomorrow? It doesn't. When does it start looking different? 3 months from now, 4 months from now, right? And so your gut health will be drastically different 4 months from now. What do you do after? Then we go back to a nutrition program, and I don't even like that. I'm trying to avoid the word diet by saying diet because I hate that. What's the first 3 letters of the word diet? Die, right? Because when you take something out that's critical, you're going to get less healthy, not more healthy. Like people are like, oh, I'm taking out carbohydrates. Like vegetables are carbohydrates. Remember that, right? Or people are like, oh, I'm going vegan. Like meat raised properly is like nature's superfood. Like those animals are vegetable processing factories for you. They eat all these grasses to get all that nutrition into their meat, so that when you eat that meat, you get a lot of nutritional density out of it. Now, different people have to eat different ways, maybe, sensitivities, blood types, et cetera, yeah. But what we have is we have a nutritional plan that includes 2 different plans. One's called the core plan, and one's called the advanced plan. And really, the core plan is just what everyone should do. The core plan is you're eating properly raised meats, you're eating healthy versions of carbohydrates, you're eating only good fats that are hydrogenated, no seed oils, and then lastly, you're eliminating toxins via processed food. So if somebody asked me, how do you eat? Or if I ask a patient, how do you eat? They're like, well, I try to eat pretty good. I'm like, I didn't ask how you don't eat. I asked, like, what do you eat? How do you eat? You should be able to say, I eat only pasture-raised meats. We eat organic fruits and vegetables. We don't eat any inflammatory fats, only non-inflammatory fats. And then lastly, we avoid processed food. Like that's a nutritional plan. But if somebody says, I eat okay, like that's not a plan. And so we want our patients to have a plan. The core plan is the plan. Now, having a plan doesn't mean you never go off the plan. Sometimes you go have Deweys. But then you have a plan that you follow when you don't have Deweys, right? You eat the plan most of the time, and then sometimes we have these days or these vacation meals or whatever it is, but we have a plan. Now, the advanced plan is the core plan, except for it's more strict. So it cuts out more fruit, and it cuts out some of the starchier carbohydrates, and it has you increasing more good fats in replacement of those. So the core plan and the advanced plan are the same, just the advanced plan is a little more strict. Who's the core plan for? Everyone. Everyone. You can do the core plan and do it in a ketogenic way. You can do the core plan and do it in a more raw way with less meat, but like the core plan is still the core plan. Now, if you're going on the advanced plan, why do you go on the advanced plan? If you are pre-diseased or in a disease state, and that also includes obesity. And you do the advanced plan until you're now a core plan candidate. Does that make sense? Does it mean that you never go off the advanced plan? No, you might go on vacation and not stick the advanced plan for a few days or whatever, but then when you come home, you get back on that advanced plan. And what you'll find is you feel a hell of a lot better on the advanced plan than you do on those vacation days. And I had a patient, different patient than the one I told you guys about before. This guy's name was Ron. Ron came in and they weren't going to allow him to be a mail carrier. He was pre-diabetic, he had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, he was probably 80 pounds overweight, and he wanted this job, but they thought he was a health risk. So he came in and I gave him this book, the nutrition plan book, which is really good, short, it's easy read, and it's really informative. And then I gave him this, which is the Quick Start Nutrition recipes. Other way around. Gave him this book, and then I gave him the recipes. And at the time, this recipe book was thicker. Now we give you some, and then there's a link to where on our website you can find all the recipes. But I told him, I said, you don't even have to read this. I just want you to do it stupid right now. And his wife said, I'll make all the food. I said, Ron, I don't even want you to know why it works. You can figure that out later. You're just not allowed to eat anything that's not in here. And this book was thicker at the time. And I said, so your wife's going to make the food. She's going to prepare it. Your job is to only eat what she makes you, and you're not allowed to cheat and go anywhere else. And you're going to do this for 30 days. He did it for 60 days. He dropped 70 pounds in 60 days. He reversed his high cholesterol, reversed his high blood pressure. He was no longer at risk for heart disease. He wasn't pre-diabetic. His A1C was back to normal. It was fascinating, right? And like I said, just do it dumb. Now, I don't want you guys to do it dumb. I want you guys to be knowledgeable about it. But if you don't have these books, which if you're a patient, you should have these already. If you're a patient and you've been through our doctor's report of findings, you should have got 3 of these. If you don't have them, then we have some here today and we can get them to you. We'll put some extras out on the table, specifically these 2. And we'll have those out there for you guys to grab. Grab one of each, or if you know you're missing one, grab the one, okay? All right. Dr. Matt was teaching, and Dr. Justin and I were back there just kind of razzing him to ourselves, just having some fun with Dr. Matt. Do you guys remember the Muppets? Remember those 2 guys up in the corner? Who were like, that wasn't that bad. It wasn't that good either. Remember? We were back there just cracking up, but actually I was back there going, man, Dr. Matt just killed the part that I hate doing, which is going through product. But I love the way he brought all that value to that. And those products, if you guys want to get those, you have order forms. They're discounted for today. If you want any other product on your way out, our product display is over there, the men's and women's essentials. What else can you be doing outside of the nutrition guide? Bone broth protein is amazing for the gut. So after you do the protocol and you want to keep feeding your gut healthy, bone broth protein, we put that in your shakes today. So already today, you guys got yogurt, grass-fed Greek yogurt in your thing. So that was gut conscious. You got your protein shake, which had the bone broth protein in it. And then on your way out, there's protein balls from next door that they made you guys. So you can grab one of the protein balls on the way out. And then also, obviously, the juice and all the nutrients that are in that. So we try to do a very, gut conscious theme today. So thanks again, Dr. Matt, for doing that part of it. All right, lastly, I want to bring it home with the nervous system. So this is where I get to geek out. Your nervous system is the system in your body. Like you listen to this. You can go about a month without food. Remember we said that guy fasted for 40 days. You can go about a week to 10 days without water, like zero fluids whatsoever. You hear about people who get lost out in the wilderness somewhere. Like, what do they die of first? Dehydration before hunger, right? They die of dehydration. And then you can go a couple minutes maybe without air. Not me. I've tried that before in a pool. My kids beat me every time. But there are people that can go minutes. Sometimes I think the record's like 15 or 20 minutes, something crazy. But most of us could go minutes without air. But the second you disconnect your brainstem from your brain, you're done for, right? And what's interesting is most of us don't realize that without chiropractic, we're walking around in a constant state of disconnection, that our brain and its ability to fire all that information through our nervous system out through every single nerve to every organ, tissue, and cell. We have this spine that's designed to protect it and try to keep it healthy for a lifetime, but we're not designed currently to live forever in this body. This body's temporary. It's designed to last about a lifetime. And we collect stress and we collect interference. And one of the major ways that happens is the spine that actually protects our nervous system can get fixed, stuck, misaligned, and subluxated to the point where it starts putting the interference on the nervous system. And when there's stress on the nervous system from the vertebra, when the vertebrae get misaligned, they put stress on the nervous system, it causes a stress response in the nervous system. And when our bodies are under stress, imagine a gas pedal and a brake pedal in a car, okay? One is about go, 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 go. The other one's slow down, stop, 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 stop. You have a gas and a brake pedal in your nervous system. It's called your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the brake pedal. And you have your sympathetic nervous system, which is the gas pedal. And when we're under chronic stress, that sympathetic nervous system is going crazy. Why? Because it's designed for stress. When stress happens, we slam down that gas pedal. Why? Because it's a survival instinct. If a bear jumped in the room right now, some of you guys would be in trouble because you're not fast. And I only have to run faster than a couple of you, right? So, but if the bear jumped in the room right now, we'd all have one thing in common, is your eyes would dilate, your breathing would change, your heart rate would go up. If you just ate a big meal, you may get rid of it quickly because your body will say, we don't need to digest food right now. Your immune system actually gets suppressed temporarily. So when we're under a chronic state of stress, that's what chronic stress looks like. Now, the opposite is the parasympathetic nervous system. So opposite of fight or flight is rest, digest, and heal, right? So when we're talking about digestion not being good, in the nervous system, digestion and healing and rest are all very similar. When we're in that sympathetic state, when that tone is back into balance, then we're able to heal, rest, and digest more effectively, okay? What we know is that when people are chronically subluxated and their vertebrae are out of alignment and they're putting stress on their nervous system, they tend to be stuck in that sympathetic state. And when we adjust them, the chiropractic adjustment is not healing them. It's removing the interference so that the balance can come back into the nervous system so that their body can be in that healing state more of the time. Does that make sense to you guys? Chiropractors don't treat anything. We don't even treat back pain. Sometimes I adjust you and your back pain doesn't go away, but hours later it does. Why? Because all we're doing is removing the interference and now you're going to heal better. This is why chiropractic, we got accused of, in the early chiropractic days, practicing medicine without a license. And the way we got around that was B.J. Palmer said, we're not practicing medicine. Medicine is the practice of diagnosing conditions and then treating them. We're not diagnosing any condition. We're finding subluxations and adjusting them for the purpose of removing the interference. And we're not treating anything. We're simply making minor adjustments. The body's doing the healing. And then he said, and by the way, you guys don't treat anything either. Actually, you just add interference, which is interesting when you think about it, right? And so when you're getting adjusted, I want you guys to understand that our job as a chiropractor is to continually, lifelong, reconnect you to the source of your healing. I love that. I love that chiropractic from the beginning admits to you guys, this is a lifelong endeavor. Nutrition's a lifelong endeavor. Anything worth doing for your health should be a lifelong endeavor, right? When they put you on high blood pressure medication, how long do you think they plan on you being on it for? Forever. Do they tell you that initially? No. So at least we're being forthcoming about it. You know what I mean? Like on the other side of the aisle, when they put you on drugs, they don't intend on you coming off of them the same way I don't intend on you guys not getting adjusted. That's what our goal is for you. This is last piece, and then we're done. Windsor autopsies. This was done in the 1920s. This is how far chiropractic, since its inception, has not changed a lot. Because when something's based on principles that are true, they don't need to change a lot. We were originally removing interference for the purpose of getting nervous systems healthy from 1895 all the way to today. The only thing that's changed is now the tables go up and down and make some noise, and we have that fun little gun that goes doot, 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 and we can maybe do it faster, and we have x-ray to look at things, but the technique is basically the same. The first adjustment, D.D. Palmer said he racked a vertebra is racked out of alignment. He said he adjusted it back into alignment, and then Harvey Lillard had his hearing restored. First adjustment was deaf man restoring his hearing. And then all these stories started to come out, and B.J. Palmer bought the first radio station west of the Mississippi. A chiropractor bought a 5,000 or 50,000 watt radio channel. You could hear it all over the world. And it's still there today. It's an NBC affiliate. Back then it was called WOC, Wonders of Chiropractic. They had a sports show back then. And back in like the 40s or 50s, one of the first employees that worked there when they started doing things outside of chiropractic and introducing like sports on the radio and stuff was a guy by the name of Ronald Reagan. It was his first broadcasting job. Worked for B.J. Palmer, the chiropractor at his radio station. This is how impactful B.J. Palmer was. He owned the first piece of x-ray equipment ever made. Isn't that wild? Like chiropractors. And so what's cool is in the 1920s, they're on the radio, and B.J. Palmer's debating these medical doctors. He was actually debating the head of the AMA. And all these medical doctors were getting mad because what they were being taught, he was challenging all of it. And so this one particular doctor, he's a medical doctor out of Pennsylvania, his name was Dr. Windsor, and he's like, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong. And we're going to end this forever. this nonsense about they adjust people and they heal better, and adjust this person, their stomach conditions get better, they adjust this kid and his ear infections go away, and they adjust this. Because he thought that we were adjusting them as a treatment to every condition. He's like, chiropractic can't cure every condition. It doesn't cure any conditions. It removes the interference. Your body's designed to heal, right? Disease is not the normal state, it's the abnormal state. Remove the interference, it returns. It's like there's a plant over there, there's a hose here, I step on the hose, it's not gonna get water. What's gonna happen to the plant? It's gonna die. Do we need to treat the plant? No, if we get the foot off the hose and the water returns and it gets what it needs, it starts to live and thrive, right? And so that's your nervous system like that. So then Dr. Windsor goes, here's what I'm gonna do. I got permission to go do 100 cadavers. They took 100 cadavers, they knew what every single person had died of and what organ diseases they had at death. And he said, I'm gonna do autopsies. And he said, we're gonna look at this thing called a nerve chart, a Merrick system chart. And if what these guys are saying is true, and this person died of heart disease, we're gonna find damage, degeneration, and misalignments at T1 through 5, because T1 through 5 goes to the heart, if they had heart disease. And if it's not there, they're full of crap. And then we're gonna go down here, and if they have stomach problems, we're gonna go right here through the celiac ganglia all the way up, and we're gonna go T5 through T9. And if there's not subluxations and degeneration there, then they're full of crap. This chiropractic thing has nothing to do with their health. And this was a medical doctor, and he autopsied 100 people, and he found 230 some odd diseased organs, and he said the correlation was virtually 100%. Virtually 100%. You ready? Out of 221 diseased organs, here's what he said. All 20 cases of heart disease had the upper 5 thoracic vertebra misaligned. All 26 cases of lung disease had spinal misalignments T1 through 4. All 9 cases of spinal misalignments in the mid-thoracic T5 through 9 had stomach disease. Gallstones, all 5 cases of gallstone disease had spinal misalignments at T5 through 9. Kidney disease, all 7 cases of kidney disease, thoracic T10 through 12, right? And the list goes on and goes on and goes on and goes on. Isn't that fascinating? This is why I got excited about chiropractic, and this is why I still get so excited. Organs supplied by the pinched nerves reveal pathological disease changes. The more serious the pinched nerve, the more serious the organ damage. Now, also throw stress and crappy food and toxins and all that on top of it, right? We have patients who don't change the other 4 essentials, they get adjusted, and all of a sudden they start getting better. We have other patients who change all the other 4 essentials, come in the door, and they're still not doing great. The reality is you want both. We want all 5 of those essentials, which is taking care of your nervous system, taking care of our stress and our thoughts, eating the right foods, removing toxins, and by God, exercising. Right, Mr. Gruder?
That's it.
And by God, exercising. Right, Mr. Gruder?
Body in motion stays in motion. Tends to stay in motion.
Subluxation equals degeneration in virtually every part of the body, depending on where in the spine that occurs. So action steps for you guys. Adjustments in rhythm, home care regularly, and breaking bad habits. That's the 3-legged stool of chiropractic care we always talk about. When you come in, if your x-rays are looking better, it's because those 3 things are in place. And if your x-rays are starting to look a little bit worse, it's because one of those things is out of place, and we need to address it. Adjustments in rhythm. That may not be the same for everybody, but rhythm is what matters. If you're a weekly patient, weekly. If you're a biweekly patient, biweekly. Keep the rhythm. You miss an adjustment, make it up. Rhythm matters, just like the gym. And then the home care, that helps to keep the effectiveness of this going, and it helps to strengthen and support what we're changing through the adjustments. And then breaking bad habits, like iPhones, we see worse neck curves now more than ever because the iPhone came out in 2006 or whatever. Now everybody's neck curve looks terrible. It's a sociological problem, but there's habits. So how do we do that? One of them, get your phone up. Stop looking down at your crotch all the time. Core plan and advanced plan. So when you guys leave today, grab the packet, core plan and advanced plan, last 4 hours protocol. If you have your sheet, fill it out. If you want the product, grab it. There's other product back there. We have a discount. I believe I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm not going to say it out loud, but a certain percentage discount on any product bought today. If you guys know that you take our vitamin D or men's and women's essentials or anything like that, load up. You can buy several of them if you want. That's our gift to you guys for coming to an event, is that if you use our product, that we discount it when you come to events. Cool? I can tell you certain patients that they were at an event. A patient of mine passed away about a year ago, and his name was Mr. Porter. Mr. Porter was at an event like this back in 2013, and he had smoldering multiple myeloma. And his doctors told him, they had him on all these chemotherapeutics. and they told him that he probably wasn't going to make it much longer. They gave him a time frame, I can't remember what it was. But the chemotherapeutics were destroying his body. And that's the theory. We're going to kill everything and hope that the strong cells survive. The problem is, at that moment, what's thriving better at that moment? The cancer, right? So he's deteriorated, his cancer's getting worse, and he comes to an event that we did based on cancer, and I show a video of a guy using the 5 essentials to overcome smoldering multiple myeloma, and he happens to be sitting, different guy, you know, Mr. Porter's sitting in the crowd watching a video about some other guy and how his life turned around, whatever. We had these bracelets we gave out that day, and they said the cancer killer's on them. And he had a bracelet that said the cancer killer's. Years later, we gave out another one that just had the Max Living logo, and he wore these rubber bracelets. The day he died, I went to the hospital when we didn't know if he was going to make it or not, and he still had those bracelets on. And that was 13 years later after he came to an event like this. How awesome is that? He got to see some of his grandkids born. He got to spend more time with his wife. He got to retire. He got to work on his photography hobby. Some people it's a habit. It's expensive. But that's when I say events like this can be transformational. They can be, but it requires one thing: a moment of decision. So that's your guys' job when you leave here today. Cool? Let's pray real quick. Father, we're grateful for everybody that's here. We're grateful for the opportunity to learn. We're grateful for just the wisdom that came out of this through the other doctors' mouths and the opportunity to share. I just feel blessed that we have patients who have ears to hear. Father, that we pray that when they leave here that they share this, that we just don't keep this under a bushel. We share with our family. To talk about what we learned. Even the whole thing about referrals, Father, that's about reaching out in that space where we know the alternative. The people outside of our office, they're inundated with pharmaceutical ads and all this. So we know that people in our office are happier and healthier than the people outside of our office. So we're just grateful for all that, grateful for everybody who's here. We ask that you bless them throughout the weekend. And we just love you and thank you and ask this in your name. Amen. We just finished up our Love My Guts makeover. It was awesome. We had a ton of guests here, learned a lot of great stuff, and I know they're really inspired to make changes. That's one thing I believe, is that we really need to help inspire people to understand what they need to do, but more importantly, why they need to do it, or the change is never gonna happen. If you liked what you learned and you wanna engage with us, our phone number and our email are right there. Please click on that, like and subscribe to everything we do. Join us at our next event, both live or online, and we would love to take care of you also as a patient in our office.